Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. I hope you find this video really interesting. Tell us what you think, Ron. I think it's going to be great. Okay, got it. Take care everybody, enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 5. Here we are making some really good progress with the goat amp. You'll notice here that we have the faceplate now attached, and I've run the wires down through the bottom of the chassis. So right here is your input jack wire. Here's the wiper of your volume pot. Here's a connection that goes up through to the 12AX7 from the tone controls. And then I have a resistor here which has to go to ground. I haven't done that yet. And there's also a ground lug on the volume pot that has to be connected yet. I haven't done that. You'll notice I also put in the filter cap. That's done. It's a pair of 50/50s. There's a 50 and a 50 in here at 500 volts. And you'll notice I've also put a piece of heavy rigid plastic here to cover this hole up to keep it safe. And I've got the pilot light wired in and soldered correctly. I've got the power switch connected, and we're going to talk a little bit about the power switch in a minute. Let me flip this over and show you where we are, and we'll take a walk through. So, there's been a lot of debate about power, especially for me. So, you know, this is something I've never been able to get my head around. Like, what's the right way to connect a 3-prong power cord to an amp like this when you're building it from scratch? And the mistake that I sometimes make is I would take the neutral and put the neutral through the fuse, or put the neutral to the switch. And, you know, what all of you have come back and told me is that it needs to look like this. And I told you in my last video that I was going to hang this up on my bench, and this is exactly what I've done. I've created this drawing, and we'll zoom in a little bit, and you'll see here's our power cord coming in. This is the ground, the green wire. The black, which is the hot, goes to a fuse, goes to the switch, and to the transformer. Your neutral, which is your white wire, simply just attaches directly to the transformer. That's how I've wired this amp now. Now I have to tell you, I went back and watched a few of my older amps that I've put together. I didn't have it this way. Matter of fact, there's the Philco Champ, which was built and given to Carl, Sky Carl. I looked at that video series and didn't see that I wired it that way, so I sent him a note and said, hey Carl, you may want to go back underneath and fix that. I looked at a few of my other projects and they were okay. So, you know, it's just something that I had a mental block. But the reason why I'm going through all this is I watched a few episodes of video that Terry from D-Lab put out. Right? Terry builds amps very much like I do. Matter of fact, if you recall, this design that I'm following is one of Terry's. And I noticed that Terry put his neutral directly to the fuse. So I'm confused. Which is the right way to do this? Is it the hot side? Is it the white side? I'm going to go with the hot side, the black wire, from now on. I'm not going to do it any differently. I'm going to do it the same way every time. Unless someone can convince me that that's wrong. But I believe from your input that that is the right way to do it. So just throwing it out there for debate. Anyway, let's continue on what progress we've made. So here's our high voltage coming in. And you'll notice I moved the terminal strip here. And let's see if we can get a little closer in there and show you a little bit better. Yeah, that'll work. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, let's see if that does it. Okay, so you'll see here that I have my high power coming in here, and I have it attached to the two 1N4007s. So this is where my rectification is occurring. Comes into this terminal strip right here. There's a wire that comes off the terminal strip and goes to my first filter cap, which is right here. It goes to this first leg of this 50. There's also a wire that comes off the 50, the first 50, and that actually ends up going to the output transformer. I've got that wire right here. Now the way this works, I also have the ground portion of the cap to a lug right here. It's grounded to the chassis. It calls for a 1 watt 1K resistor going between the two leads on the can, and that's going to act as a nice bleed resistor. When I power this off, it's going to discharge that cap really well. And there's a lead that comes off of the second 50, and that goes up to the 6AV6 inverter tube, which is right here. So it's a short run, but I've got a long wire on it. And then there's a 10K resistor that goes from this leg over to a 10 microfarad cap, and I'll show you the schematic in a moment. And I have that 10 microfarad cap right here connected one side to ground, one side to the positive side of the cap, and there's a wire that comes off of that, and that goes up to the 6AV6 as well. So I've essentially got my complete power section done, except I haven't attached anything to the tubes. So let's take a look at the drawing and see what we've accomplished so far. I may need to zoom out a little bit here. We'll try it. A little bit back. Okay. All right. So here's my two diodes, and here's the wire that comes out that I'm going to end up getting about 270 volts DC. Here's the positive side of my first filter cap, my 50, and you'll see that there's a connection point for the 1K resistor I told you about. And there's a connection point that comes here and goes all the way to the center tap of the output transformer. Okay, done. We then take that resistor, that 1K resistor, we go to the second leg of the 50, and we have that connected there. There's also a 10K resistor that goes there, and I have a wire, I've marked it as yellow, and that comes up here and goes to pin 6 of the first output tube, 6AQ5. Got a yellow wire right there. And then you'll see, coming off of this 10K resistor, there's another cap here, right here. It's a 10 microfarad, 400 volt. I've got that again connected to ground, and I have it connected here, and there's a wire that comes up and ends up going right here to this connection point, and I've stopped there because I haven't gone any further. So that's done. That whole section is done. Just to keep everything honest here, I also connected the wiper of the volume pot, this blue wire, to pin 7 of the 12AX7. That's been done. I've also connected a wire to my input jack, which is right here, and I simply just have that marked. So when we pull the shot up, let's pull the camera up first. When we pull the shot up, you'll see there's not a lot here, right? There's not much left to do, right? I'm going along well. So the main thing that I'm going to do at this point is be really, really neat here. I want to make sure, as I told you in the beginning of the series, I want to run these wires very, very neat. I'm going to try to keep them all together, keep separating signal from power, because you never want to have your signal wires running in power. And we're going to start to run some of these wires to the tubes and get that going. I'm going to be mounting a terminal strip here for the 12AX7, because there are quite a few things that go connected to it. For example, on pin 8, I have to install a 25 microfarad cap and a 1.5K resistor. Both go to ground. Same thing is true on pin 3. So I have to do that here, and I'm going to need a terminal strip here to do that. Coming off of the inverter tube here, I do have a 1 meg resistor. I also have on pin 1, and I also have a 1K resistor coming off of pin 2. And then pin 7, I also have a 56K resistor. So I'm going to need a terminal strip around here to keep all that neat. And then lastly, on my output tubes, there's quite a few things here. There's a couple of resistors that have to go in, 560K, and there's a 10 watt 360 ohm resistor that needs to go in here somewhere. And there'll be a nice little terminal strip mounted somewhere around here. Then lastly, what we'll do is we'll put our output transformer out, and our output transformer is going to go right on the other side of here, like this. And those wires, I'm going to drill this out, are going to come through here with a grommet, and the wires from my output transformer simply go to the 6AQ5s, which are over here. That's a quandary for me, because I don't know if I want to run those wires all the way across. So I'm going to think about where else I can mount the output transformer. I may be able to mount it right here on this side. There's plenty of space on the other side here. If I mount it here, then my wires come right out here and they go right to the output tube. So that's probably going to be what I end up doing. But we've got a little bit of time yet, so I may not use this as the location. So so that's the plan. Now theoretically, I could turn this thing on right now and see what kind of voltage I get going through this capacitor. But I'm going to wait. I know my my filaments are working, and there's really no reason for me to start messing around with this thing and that kind of thing. There's really not much left to do. So so we're going to start working on the wiring, and I'll come back and send you an update and tell you what I'm up to. I'll be back. Okay, everybody, before we go further, I want to explain something. So if you recall, the layout of this amp is a 12AX7 preamp, an inverter tube, and 2 output tubes. I want to just take a moment and explain what an inverter tube is for those of you that don't know. And I'm going to try to explain it. I think I can do a decent job. I've watched a lot of videos on how they work and why they're required. And I'm going to try to make it real simple. I'm not going to go into a long drawn-out video here. So basically, a Class A amplifier is an amplifier that has one output tube. Okay? So your signal comes straight through, goes right to your output tube, to your output transformer, and it goes out. It's simple. The thing to remember is that your signal that goes out of your tube to your speaker is an AC signal. It's AC. It's not DC. Okay? Just keep that in mind. So when you come out of your output tube and go to your output transformer and your speaker, you're dealing with AC. Now, what happens here is when you have two output tubes, there's a problem. So think about this for a second. Your signal's coming along here to your first output tube, and let's say like this, it's positive when it gets there. Okay? And here's your second output tube, and it's positive when it gets there. Well, when you take two positive signals and put them through an output transformer, they effectively cancel each other out. Nothing will happen. You'll get no noise. So what you need to do is you need to invert the signal. That's exactly what this inverter tube is doing. So think of it this way. If you have if you have a positive ripple from an AC coming in here, and you have a positive ripple from this output tube coming in here, you're going to get no sound. But if you're able to invert one of them, as you're doing here with this inverter tube, you'll have a positive rise on this side and a negative rise on this side, and you get noise. Okay? That's exactly what this thing is doing. It's taking these two output tubes and making them out of phase. That's the only way you're going to get noise out of the amplifier. If they're in phase together, you'll get no noise. You'll get no sound. So this inverter tube is basically ensuring that one side is opposite of the other side. That's exactly what it does. Okay? Now, single-ended amps, which are Class A with one output tube, are very, very good. I mean, most of your older Fender amps are single-ended, like the Champ, the Fender Champ, and they generate a lot of heat. They have a lot of nice warm sound, though. When you run an amp like this with dual output tubes, like we're doing here, the 6AQ5s and the inverter tube, it's much more efficient. It doesn't run as hot. You get a much better sound out of it. It'll probably last a little bit longer too because it's not generating as much heat. So that's the importance of having the inverter tube. I know I've kind of breezed through that quickly. The only other thing I want to mention, which is important, and I think you should know that, coming off of this filter cap right here. Here's our first filter cap coming right off of the diodes. You'll see this connection comes up and goes to the center tap of the output transformer. That's coming in as DC, right? Just remember that for a second. It's coming in as DC voltage. What's coming out of the plates of the output tubes is AC. So basically what you're doing is you're running AC and DC at the same time through this coil, through this winding. And you could do that. There's nothing wrong with that. They won't impact each other. So I just thought that would be something that would be interesting for you to think about. Something that certainly made me kind of raise my eyebrow. How could you have AC and DC running at the same time? But you can. That's exactly what's happening here. So your DC is running here, and you're trying to exhibit equal force on both sides with your AC ripple. Okay, I hope that helps. It certainly helped me. Uncle Doug has a great video out there on inverter tubes, and it's about 28 minutes long. If you want to watch that to get a little more detailed, you can. He uses an example of this output transformer being two horses tied at the tail, right here. When you have a positive side of your AC ripple, the horse moves forward. When you have a negative side, the horse goes backwards. So if you have the horse's head here and the horse's head here, and you have a positive signal going to both sides, they're both going to pull this way, and nothing's going to happen. They're not working together. But when you invert the signal, and you have a positive here and a negative here, this horse is going to go forward, this horse is going to go backwards. They're going to work together, and then vice versa. That's the way he described it. Pretty interesting. So that's the story with inverter tubes. So let me stop this now and we'll talk about the output transformer. Be back. Okay, so looking at this output transformer, you'll see it's right here. And it's an 8 ohm output transformer. And I really don't have a lot of place to put it. If the chassis had been deeper underneath, I could probably mount it underneath. I don't have a lot of good choices here. I don't want to put it here, which would be way too close to these output tubes. I don't want to shove it in here because then it's way too close to the 12AX7, right? You don't want anything near that 12AX7. So I think what we're going to end up doing is mounting it right here. And these are my output wires, which will come to the output of the amp right around here somewhere. I'll figure that out. And then these wires, which go to the signal, will come right around here and go to our output tubes. So we're going to end up mounting that right there. That's the that's going to be the plan. We're trying to make this amp as quiet as possible, and that's going to be the plan. So so that's what we're going to do. Okay. I'm going to do that in the next episode because I think this one is probably a little bit long, or longer than it needs to be. So we're probably going to stop here. So when we come back, you're going to see most of the wiring done under here. You're going to see the output transformer connected, and we're going to be on our way to possibly do a test. But we'll find out how much I can get done. It is still the middle of the week, and I do have to work, so we'll see how much I can get done. But we're making some decent progress here. One last question for you. This power thing I spoke about before. I haven't found one clear video on YouTube that shows you how to wire this up. Everybody's got, you know, all kinds of videos that don't really spell things out. I'm curious if any of you have found any videos that show you how to properly wire up a fuse holder, a switch, and an AC in an old amp or radio like this. If you haven't found one, I'm going to create one. Okay? And I'm going to create a real simple one. And I'm going to use this diagram as my guide using the hot side. So before I do that, just share with me a little bit if you know of anything that's out there. If not, I'll be happy to create it. Okay? All right, folks, that's it for this episode. We will see you in episode 6. Take care.